The air inside the Arlington town hall was thick with tension. Folding chairs scrapped against the linoleum floor as more people squeezed in, the low murmur of political chatter building like static before a storm. On stage, under the hot glow of overhead lights, Karoline Leavitt gripped the microphone. Her answers had been sharp all night, sometimes playful, sometimes combative. Kash Patel, seated midway back in the crowd, rose to ask his question. His voice was steady but probing, pressing her on the nuances of foreign policy and American alliances. Before the question was even finished, Leavitt leaned forward with a sudden, cutting smile. "Why don't you just go back to India?" she said, her words slicing through the room like glass shattering on tile. For a split second, there was silence, a stunned, breathless silence. A woman in the front row blinked hard, as if she wasn't sure she'd heard correctly. Somewhere in the back, a man muttered under his breath. The murmur returned, heavier now, layered with shock, disbelief, and a creeping sense that something very public and very ugly had just happened. Patel didn't move at first. He simply stood there, his expression unreadable, the weight of the insult hanging in the air. A lesser man might have snapped back immediately, but Patel's eyes didn't flash with anger. They narrowed ever so slightly, as though he were carefully measuring his next move. The audience seemed frozen, caught between outrage and curiosity. Some shifted uncomfortably in their seats, unsure whether to clap, boo, or say nothing at all. A few cell phones were already raised, recording every frame, their tiny red lights blinking like beacons of judgment. On stage, Leavitt tilted her head, as if expecting him to crumble under the sting of her words. The moderator glanced sideways at her, lips pressed into a thin line, then back at Patel, silently urging him to respond. The tension was almost physical now, thick enough to make people lean forward without realizing it, all of them wondering whether the next words out of his mouth would spark chaos or command respect. Patel finally stepped forward, his shoes clicking lightly on the wooden floor as he approached the microphone. His posture was relaxed, but his presence filled the space in a way that made people instinctively quiet down. He took a slow breath, his eyes locked on Leavitt's. "Karoline," he began, his voice calm enough to feel deliberate, "I was born in New York. My family came here legally, worked hard, and has been serving this country for decades." He paused, letting the words settle, then leaned a little closer to the mic. "And, unlike some, we never tell fellow Americans to go back. We show up, we serve, we make this place better." The words weren't shouty, they didn't need to be. There was a quiet authority in them, the kind that left no room for argument. A wave of applause broke out from the middle rows, quickly spreading through the hall. Even a few people who had been clapping for Leavitt earlier now nodded in agreement, murmuring approval. Leavitt shifted in her seat, her smirk fading as the momentum in the room visibly shifted toward the man she had just tried to diminish. By the time Patel returned to his seat, the entire energy of the room had changed. People were still clapping, some standing now, while others whispered to their neighbors about what they'd just witnessed. A few pulled out their phones, hurriedly uploading the clip to Twitter, Facebook, TikTok, anywhere it could be seen. Within an hour, the exchange had exploded online. News anchors were already cutting into scheduled programming to replay the moment, describing Patel's measured response as a masterclass in composure and patriotism. Commentators who rarely agreed on anything found themselves praising the same quality as a restraint, dignity, and an unshakable confidence in his American identity. Leavitt's team scrambled to push out a statement, but it felt too little, too late. The soundbite was everywhere, and so was the applause that followed it. Patel's words were already being turned into graphics, quotes, and even t-shirt designs by supporters. Across the country, people who had never heard of Kash Patel before were suddenly talking about him at coffee shops, in classrooms, and at kitchen tables. For one night, at least, his response had cut through the noise of politics and reminded Americans left, right, and center what it looked like to meet hostility not with anger, but with quiet, undeniable strength.